So, Fate Reforged just came out, and yet I'm already coming back to y'all with another deck tech. This is an update on Jeskai Control for Standard, specifically for the Fate Reforged season of Standard. Now, this isn't necessarily the build that I prefer the most, but it's definitely going to be working for now. There are a couple of cards, or actually I should say a couple copies of one card, that I will want to add to the sideboard later. However, other than that, the build seems pretty great. I've been playtesting against other people I did so shortly after the pre-release, and people have modified their standard deck so quite a bit, and the control deck you're seeing here actually did not lose to a single deck during that point in time. Not to mid-range, not to tempo, not to even other control decks. So I'm very happy with it. So let's go ahead and start this out. Land base remains mostly the same with 4 monastery or mystic monasteries. I'm trying to maneuver around my camera here. Not the easiest thing to do right now. 4 Temple of Enlightenment. I'm not going to explain the mana base too much because it's pretty basic at this point. It's pretty universal. Scry lands just to get some mana fixing into Scry a little bit. The Tri-land just because it's perfect land for us. Not really a whole hell of a lot I need to say. So we have 4 Temple of Epiphany. 2 Temple of Triumph. I find that I only need the 2 copies. I tried running more before and it just did not work out so well. 2 Mana Confluence to ensure we have some mana that comes into play untapped whenever we need it. Yeah, it costs a little bit of life, but no big deal. Singleton Shivan Reef. Some of you may run Battlefield Forge instead. I prefer the Reef. Then we have 5 Basic Islands, as well as 4 Basic Mountains. So our mana base is pretty simple. Okay, we've got 9 basics, the rest are all non-basics. Now we move on to the spells of the deck. Ugin the Spirit Dragon is a great card for us to have here. I actually pulled this out of my very first Fate Reforged pack during pre-release. Super happy about that. It is a 7 loyalty, 8 drop, colorless planeswalker with +2 to Ghostfire something. -2. Exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less that is 1 or more colors. I don't know why they couldn't just say exile each colored permanent with converted mana cost X or less. But whatever. Basically, this is going to be, let's say we neg 5. We exile everything converted mana cost 5 or less. So we get rid of Stormbreath Dragon, Siege Rhino, Prognostic Sphinx, or whatever, Butcher the Horde, whatever we're coming up against. This is definitely a good creature to, not creature, but definitely a good planeswalker to have, good removal. And then we have -10, which is you gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put 7 permanents from your hand onto the battlefield. It is the anti-bolus. It is kind of a new Sphinx's Revelation for us, and it is so game-changing, even in a control deck. I played this, got it to its ultimate, and literally went, okay, ultimate, let's go ahead and gain 7, draw 7. I'm going to put out Prognostic Sphinx, Pearl Lake, Ancient Sarkon, Elspeth, and then some land. And I had the game completely locked at that point. There was just no going back. So even in control, Ugin is amazing. And I suspect you'll see a lot of play in mid-range as well. Mostly because as a one-of in Abzan mid-range, or even Sidisi Whip, it could be insane. Who knows, go ahead and draw 7, gain 7 life, and then throw 7 cards in the battlefield. Let's say you get, I don't know, Soul of Innistrad, double Hornet Queen, Whip of Erebos, and land and Sidisi Whip, or you get, in Abzan, you get some Siege Rhinos, and maybe a Nissa or a Sorin. The possibilities are just endless, and Ugin is going to be such a high-powered card in my opinion. I'm really loving it. Amazing, amazing addition to the deck. 1 Elspeth Sun's Champion, going down to just 1 because Ugin's in the deck now. We needed to keep some of the mana cost at least reasonably fair. This is a very expensive deck. But some Soldier Generation, the -3 can be some removal, and the emblem is a way for us to pretty much crash in for game, so long as the Soldier's still on board. Still running 1 Sarkon because I still like him as a quick 4 damage for 5 at the very least. He could also stoke the flames of creature if we need him to. The emblem has still never been used by me, but maybe in the future it could be relevant. Creatures, we have 1 Resolute Archangel. This is something that I added to the deck and immediately fell in love with because there were several times when playing against mid-range I really just wasn't set up yet, and I took a lot of damage in the early and mid-game. Got to the late game, had enough to win the game, but didn't have enough life to do so. Throwing down a card that bumps you back up to 20 life and gives you a 4/4 flyer is just insane. Very, very strong card. Highly underestimated. Double Pearl Lake Ancient, I did add these in the deck, and they are so amazing. They've won me so many games. Very, very difficult to deal with, can't be countered. Flash into the end of your opponent's turn. It just dodges the removal, it can't be countered. It's an amazing card to drop, great bomb. No control deck should be without them. Still running the double Prognostic Sphinx. I still like the Prognostic Sphinx. The 3/5 for 5 flying, scry 3 whenever it attacks, and tap it, discard a card to give it hexproof is still amazingly relevant. Still gets in the way of Stormbreath Dragon and other big threats. Still very hard to remove, and makes a very good blocker if nothing else. Okay, moving on to our other spells. I'm running one Temporal Trespass. Yes, even in control, this is amazing. Why? Because at the very, very, very least, we either get some activations out of a Planeswalker again, or we get some more swings out of our creatures. It really is just a way to make sure we win the game. If we're on like 4 life, or better yet, let's say we're on 3 life, we're playing our opponents, God knows, maybe they have a Siege Rhino in hand, we have Pearl Lake Ancient, Ugin on board. It can be extremely relevant. What we can do is just negative the Ugin, get rid of their creature, swing with Pearl Lake, take an extra turn, and swing with Pearl Lake again, and lock the game in our favor as opposed to letting them win the game. It can be very game-changing, and has actually won me a couple of games, specifically against ops on mid-range. Most of the situations that I'm throwing out there, these hypothetical situations, I actually did see shortly after the pre-release playing against other people who just beat their standard decks up. So, Temporal Trespass, very, very relevant spell. Only 3 dig through time now, as Temporal Trespass is also a delve spell. So we didn't want to take too much. We don't want to run too much reliance on our graveyard for a resource. The 3 dig through time is still working out great. We still have enough draw. We still stack our deck the way we need to. So no concerns there. Singleton Tormenting Voice, just draw 2-drop, discard an additional card. Discard a card as an additional cost to play it, draw 2. So it's 2 in the graveyard, 2 in our hand. We feed Delve and we get card advantage. So I like Tormenting Voice quite a lot. 4 Dissolve. Obviously counter target spell, Scry 1 is still our premium control spell in the deck. Still loving it. No reason to remove it. This one I'm also running a single Nullify, just for a nice additional boost. Very universal. Seeing as how we're a very mid-range dominated meta right now. For board removal, I guess I should say, I have Aether Spouts to really clear the board of all attacking creatures. 3 Hostilities, because wiping out a field of very beefy creatures is very important. And 3 Anger of the Gods, because we can't forget that tokens are a thing, Whip is a thing, and aggro and tempo decks are a thing. So exiling their Hornet Queen as opposed to just killing it is definitely a good feeling. Singleton Banishing Light, just to do some additional spot removal against anything but Stormbreath. Then we have 4 Jeskai Charm. At this point, I've actually found myself using the final ability more than any of the others, although the second ability to deal 4 is still very relevant. And the first ability to put a target creature on top of its owner's library is great. End of their turn, I don't think so, let's go ahead and get that on top of your library. Let's get that Sarkhan on top of your library. Let's get that, I don't know. You wouldn't want to do it to a Siege Rhino, but you would want to do it to any creature that could potentially kill you next turn. It's just a way to delay them. They kind of waste their draw step, and they put their creature back down with Summoning Sickness. So, very relevant, but that final ability to give your creatures +1/+1 and lifelink until end of turn, oh my dear lord. Activating that with a Pearl Lake Ancient and a Prognostic Sphinx on board, or even with just a bunch of little tokens on board, even if you are so far behind that you're not going to get in for a lot of, you're not going to actually hit them for some damage, when they assign blockers, you're still going to be gaining a good amount of life, and that still kind of puts you, in a decent state. So, I like the Jeskai Charm quite a bit. Very powerful spell. And then finally, 4 Lightning Strike, just a 3 damage for 2. Very good card, very standard card, highly playable. So now we move on to the sideboard. Now the sideboard hasn't changed too much, but it has changed a little bit, and definitely worth noting. Before I get into it, there's one card that I want 2 copies of in my sideboard, and that's Soulfire Grandmaster. If you're not familiar with it, it is a, I believe, 2/2 for 3. It could be 2/2 for 2 or something along those lines. But it gives your instants and sorceries lifelink, essentially turning Lightning Strike into Lightning Helix, Jeskai Charm into War Leader's Helix at some point. But the most ridiculous part is Anger of the Gods. If you're playing against a token deck or a tempo deck where they're putting out a lot of creatures, being able to say, okay, 3 to everything, I'm going to gain that much life. 3 to that, 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 3 to that. I gain all of that, and now the board is clear. It puts you so far ahead that it's insane. Yes, you'll kill your Soulfire Grandmaster, but also if you have enough mana to go ahead and pull it off, you can use a second ability, which is 2 red / blue, so 2 is it hybrid mana, and 2, the next instant or sorcery you cast goes back to your hand as opposed to your graveyard. So, yeah, very powerful card, extremely playable, great for this deck. I will need to acquire 2 copies of it. But let's go ahead and cut to the sideboard I currently have. A single copy of Deflecting Palm. Deflecting Palm is still good enough for me to want to run, just not relevant enough for me to want to run 2 of. I didn't find too many situations where I was really bringing it in and doing much with it. But good way to say talk to the hand. I don't think I want to take that damage. I think you should. And since it is an instant, it actually would also work with Soulfire Grandmaster the same way. I don't know, they're swinging in at us with a... what's a big creature in Standard right now? A monstrous Stormbreath Dragon. Let's go with that. Because Deflecting Palm does not target it, we can still select Stormbreath Dragon as our option and deal them the damage, and then we're just going to go ahead and gain that life. But anyways, 3 Nyx Release Ram, great blocker. Again, comes in against aggro and token decks the most, and gives us a little bit of life, so it can be nice and relevant. Just too good not to run. Single copy of Fated Retribution. This comes in mostly against Planeswalker and mid-range decks as a way for us to have an additional bit of board wipe at instant speed. You know, we're leaving up 7 mana at the end of our turn. They could think we're just going to go ahead and flash in a Pearl Lake Ancient or something. You know, they could think, okay, I know what his bluff is. I'm just going to go ahead and swing anyway because it doesn't matter. Well, whenever they go ahead and put everything on the board and clear their swings, dropping a Fated Retribution at instant speed is a great way to just level the field and give you some advantage. Because in the late game, if they don't have a board and you have mana and you have cards in your hand, it really, really locks the game on your side. And if it's your turn, you get to scry too, so that's okay. 2 copy of Erase, because Constellation is still somewhat of a thing, and Whip is still a thing. Getting rid, being able to exile their Whip of Erebos is great. Dealing with Doomwake is not as big a deal for us, but it can be relevant if we have Elspeth on the field, because we don't want our tokens dying, obviously. It could end up being a 1-for-1 spot removal. Also great against mid-range to deal with Courser or Crewfix. So I quite like it. 3 cards coming straight from Fate Reforged is Reality Shift. And yes, I have that super sexy Ugin's Fate alternate art. I love it, the alternate art that actually feature Ugin on him. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters, but this was a godsend for us because prior to this, Jeskai Control did not really have an efficient way to deal with Stormbreath Dragon, aside from Stoke the Flames, which I still find awful in this deck. A 4 mana, 4 drop is for 4 damage. Really just, no, don't like it, don't care for it. Reality Shift, exile target creature, its controller manifests the top card of his or her library. This card is great for saying, okay, I don't like your Stormbreath Dragon, get rid of it, and you get a 2/2. In decks where they're also scrying a lot and they're stacking their deck, we could be taking out a very important piece. Against CDC Whip, it's also very fun because we can say, okay, I'm going to exile your Hornet Queen, so you won't get an extra use out of it, and then manifest the top card of your library. The funny part is, even if they end up manifesting a Hornet Queen and they turn it face up, the trigger on Hornet Queen will not activate because the creature is already on the battlefield. So the enter the battlefield effect is pretty much, null and void. All they have now is a 2/2 flyer and for 7 mana if they want to turn it face up. So Reality Shift, just amazing for us, really gives us some presence in the current meta, and I'm loving it. 3 Disdainful Stroke, also, they're still in here, they're still great. Great for dealing with the mid-range matchups. And then last but not least, 2 Negate for dealing with control. Also good against the Planeswalker decks. So this is my current build for Fate Reforged Season of Standard. Now, whenever I get those copies of Soulfire Grandmaster, how will I put them in here? More than likely, I'll probably remove one of the erase, or actually, I could remove 2 erase to put it in, as enchantments are becoming less and less and less threatening to us, really. And yeah, them having lifelink on the Whip of Erebos can be a pain in the neck, but if we can also gain lifelink and definitely do a lot more damage with our burn spells, their lifelink just isn't quite as relevant at that point in time. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I'm always open to suggestions. I'm loving Jeskai control, and I'll be coming to y'all with another control deck very soon. That'll be my take on blue-black control. And what can I say? I'm a control freak. I love it. I hope y'all enjoy the videos. I'll be coming back with some more videos, hopefully in the near future. Maybe some commander deck techs. That could be kind of fun. But until then, I'll see y'all later.